Hi everybody, welcome back to English 112 Section 2. This is for our class for Tuesday, and that is the 2nd of November, where we are in the middle of watching A Midsummer Night's Dream. I also wanted to talk a little bit about registration. As you know, registration has been delayed as the college implements a policy for submitting in proof of vaccination for next semester. But our course schedule has gone live on the GCC website. So you can now access the internet, you can now access the intersession and the spring course schedule on the internet on the GCC website. And I'll talk a little bit more about the schedule when it comes time for actually registration, but I wanted you to be aware of that. And if you're a Shakespeare fan, you should know that I'm teaching a class in Shakespeare next semester on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. So where we are is watching part 2 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. What I'm doing is working my way through your papers. It might take me a little bit of time, but I will definitely get those back to you before you need to submit paper number 2. And this second part of A Midsummer Night's Dream is where we are going to see much of the conflict come to a head. So we know that in part 1, the plot was that Theseus and Hippolyta were an engaged couple and they were conquered in war, or she was conquered in war as an Amazon. This is a very typical kind of love, one that's very politically based. Hermia and Lysander are a dating couple, and Hermia defies her father because he wishes her to be with someone else. That's a very atypical love, that a daughter would dare to defy her father. Helena and Demetrius were in love prior to the play, but now Demetrius is no longer interested in Helena, which shows how fickle love can be. And worse, he's decided that he loves Hermia. Hermia doesn't love him. So there are elements of requited love in this play, and also the sense of how friendships can be destroyed because of love, because ultimately Hermia and Helena had been best friends. There is a fairy world, and we know that Fairy Oberon and Titania represent a married couple, so they're further along in the stages of love. They're arguing over a changeling child. Basically, this was a child that Titania feels some responsibility for because her serving woman had died in childbirth. And she thinks that she should be raising this child. Oberon wants the child, so we begin to see power struggles with them, just like we've been seeing power struggles with some of the other couples as well. Bottom and his cohorts are rehearsing a play about, well, of course, love. And Bottom is aptly named. He's at the bottom of the social scale, but he also is at the bottom of, let's say, all of these characters in terms of his temperament and his personality. He is a bit of an ass, which gives us an idea of what will be happening as the play progresses. King Theseus has basically ordered Hermia to follow her father's will or face a nunnery or death. Both would be seen as equally horrible. King Theseus being the highest law of the land. That's how desperate Aegeus is, that his daughter won't listen to him. Hermia and Lysander, their response is that they run away into the woods. They're given a little bit of time to think about their options, and they use that time to run away. And the woods represent untamed nature, a place that is not controlled by the laws of man, unlike Athens, which represents civilization and society. And Helena ends up telling Demetrius where Hermia is, illustrating that we aren't terribly smart when we're in love. Her convoluted thinking is that she hopes that Demetrius will in one way or another be indebted to her, though this is also a plot device to get all of these characters into the wilderness, which is what we are going to need as the play progresses. So both Hermia and Demetrius end up fleeing into the woods. Demetrius so that he can chase his love, Hermia, and Helena goes into the woods after him. Of course, Hermia and Lysander are already in the woods. And Bottom and his cohorts decide that they are going to be rehearsing a play in the woods so they can have some privacy. That gets all of the characters there. Fairy Oberon has a scheme which he gives to Puck, that if Puck distracts Titania with love juice, and that would allow him to take that changeling, showing how when we're in love we don't care much about anything else. And also he decides that he wants to intervene and help Helena, perhaps because he feels a little bit of empathy for her, because he has his own love problems, that he's hoping that Puck can put some love juice onto Demetrius so that he now, Demetrius, will love Helena again. Unfortunately, Oberon's instructions are a bit vague, and he says to put the love juice on the man wearing the Athenian garb, and Puck basically makes a mistake, whether it's deliberate or whether it truly is accidental. He ends up putting the love juice on Lysander instead. So now Lysander loves Helena instead of Hermia. And then when he corrects this mistake, the love juice is placed on Demetrius, but never removed from Lysander. So what we basically have is the exact opposite of how the play began. The play begins with both men in love with Hermia, the short brunette. Now both men are in love with Helena because of love juice, the tall blonde. And that will be important in terms of what we see in the second part of this particular play when the conflict ensues. And Fairy Titania wakes up and she falls in love with the first thing that she sees, which happens to be Bottom. Even worse, Puck on his own decided to make Bottom into a literal ass because Bottom was acting like an ass, illustrating how love is blind. We can even be in love with an ass. So what we are going to be watching as the play unfolds is, because of the love juice, as I indicated, now both men love the tall blonde Helena, not Hermia, the short brunette. And Helena thinks she's a victim of some sort of a terrible prank. And Hermia believes her former best friend Helena is stealing her man, which is where what I call the cat fight ensues in Act 3, very appropriately. Lots of insults, and it may not seem obvious how some insults like painted maypole are insults, but we will talk about that next class. Eventually, the love juice is going to be removed from Lysander so that he is going to return back to loving Hermia, because we know we have to have a reestablishment of order. The love juice will remain on Demetrius so that he remains loving Helena. And again, the idea is that this is a return to the status quo, and that ultimately this is the way things were before the play unfolded. The love juice is removed from Titania, who's horrified when she realizes she was in love with an ass, literally and figuratively, illustrating how love is blind. The donkey spell is removed from Bottom. He returns back to human form, but he will still continue to act like an ass. And King Theseus declares the couples are happy, so Hermia's father Aegeus basically has to accept what's happening in that particular instance. And in theory, the play could be over, but it's not. There's a third part to this particular play, the Act 5, that we'll talk about next class. So, in terms of today's attendance question, which would be due on the 3rd of November, Wednesday, 10 a.m. If you need additional time, please let me know. Thus far in your viewing, which actor's performance did you like the least? Since last time I asked you which actor's performance did you like the best. So the question is now, which actor's performance did you like the least in the 2014 adaptation of Shakespeare on Screen, and why? So I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. And enjoy the second part of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Bye.